Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. We're glad to have you on board. We got a great guest today, Kyle Reedstrom, all the way from amazing Fargo, North Dakota. If you've never been there, of course, you guys know me by now. I've been pretty much everywhere, but I recommend you go there because every place in the country has something to offer. And Fargo has some unique characteristics about it where it's located. I mean, you're close to our fellows, our neighbors to the north. I used to live in Canada. We called ourselves Canucks. I don't know if that's still appropriate or not, but lots of similarities, man. Great, yeah, awesome people, lots of farming, and down to earth, salt of the earth kind of people. So, Kyle, welcome aboard, man. I appreciate you taking time to do this.
Yeah, Gary, thanks for having me. And you know what? It's Fargo gets a bad rap for being so far north and so cold. But I'll tell you, if anybody came to Fargo this winter, oh man, we had like the best winter ever. I mean, it's been 30 degrees all winter and the wind has not been blowing as much. So, hey, we get some nice temperate winters too.
Yeah. Well, it really is neat. I've driven across up there going back and forth, from like Seattle, Washington area all the way over to over in Wisconsin, Appleton, Wisconsin, and of course Green Bay and Milwaukee and Madison. I saw Paul McCartney play at Madison, and actually stopped and taught a class there in Fargo several years ago. Most wonderful people I've ever met. I mean, took me in like I was one of their own, and went to dinner together. Some of them became students of mine. But it's a great area for investing. It's stable, it's growing and it's stable. It's pretty amazing. But if you don't mind, kind of fill us in because investors right now are always looking for undiscovered areas. I'm not saying Fargo hasn't been discovered, but it's one of those areas. It's not like everybody you hear they're talking about Texas, Florida. Everybody's the money's just pouring in there, but you've got these great secondary towns all over the country that are stable. They're economically stable. They have steady growth, and the thing I like about it is the pricing model is very favorable for investing. So I'm sure that's why you're doing well there. But kind of take us like a lot of us didn't start off investing in real estate. We started off being teachers, engineers, nurses, what have you. Kind of take us from that through the transition there. How did you get into this? What was the inspiration?
Yeah, Gary, I'm glad you brought it up that way too, because I've been in the real estate agency world for about 10 years now. So I'll get into my backstory in a little bit, but as for Fargo, as this kind of undiscovered, but now it's getting more discovered, you'd be surprised how many times I field phone calls from people from Colorado, from California investors. We've got a lot of Minnesota investors. We've got Texas investors. We have a lot of people that are curious about what's going on in Fargo. Why? It's because our average price point is still $250,000 for a single family home, mm-hmm. right? And if you look at the 20-year last 2 decades of appreciation, it's this boring, nice, steady 2.5%, 2.7%, 3% appreciation in values. And so it's almost like you have a crystal ball when it comes to real estate values, moving in a positive direction. Even in 2008, 2009, I think it was the only year that there was a negative appreciation, and it was like a negative 0.0 or negative 0.3 or something like that. It just dipped below the line. And that was in one of the most catastrophic mortgage real estate crises in our country has seen. And Fargo's just kind of the steady Betty. Mm-hmm. So we always talk about how Fargo's in a bubble. We're in our own little bubble, no matter who's president, no matter if the country's sick or if it's healthy, no matter if there's mortgages going delinquent or not. Fargo's just kind of been plug and play. And now you don't get the sexy aspect of real estate investing. So like flip investors, rehab investors, they don't have these big swings in value. But when you're talking about long-term wealth creation, man, it's a very safe place to put your money. And that's why all of my investments are still in Fargo. People always ask, have you invested outside of Fargo? And it's like, I haven't had a need to, And so, Gary, to get into my backstory a little bit, I actually am from South Dakota. I'm a hunting, fishing type of small town guy that grew up in Millbank, South Dakota, if anybody knows that reference. But it's about 2 hours
Okay.
south of Fargo. Came up to school, got my engineering degree, and that's when I felt that squeeze, Gary. I was like, I don't think that I can do this for 30 years, maybe not even 10, right? So I
Yeah.
got really curious. I started reading, started listening to podcasts, and that led me to real estate, of course. And then that's when I bought my first fourplex property near downtown Fargo. And I did the classic situation. If your listeners haven't ever invested before, maybe they haven't heard of this term, but house hacking is a very popular thing for younger investors. It was a perfect way for me to get into my first units. So I bought two fourplexes next to each other, and I went and jumped in and lived in one of them. Crazy story is that the one that I was living in, I lived in because it needed me the most. It needed rehab the most. There was actually like a pet python that was in that unit before me. Not that pythons are like dirty, but that just like kind of creeped me out to even think about that. Some snake slithering around this unit. Anyway, those tenants were gone. I moved in there, gutted the place, lived in these fourplexes. And the crazy thing that I learned with that first investment, and that I've carried in my journey as I've gone, is I really encourage investors to look at what a property can be instead of what a property is currently. So many of my investors are like, what are the numbers? Or I'm talking to a friend, what are the numbers on the place? And the numbers aren't attractive. Price points have went up. Insurance is up. Taxes are up. Okay, the numbers don't look good right now. Well, that's not the conversation we're having. We're having a conversation about what are you going to do when you put on your investor hat to make the investment a really profitable endeavor for you. And so this one's a perfect example. These two fourplexes, Gary, I was 24 years old and I didn't know what I was doing. And some real estate agent said, hey, this guy's putting new windows in. I think he's going to sell it. You want me to ask? And I said, yeah, that looks awesome. I love the location. He said, yep, he'll sell those to you for $500,000. And I was like, well, there's nothing else out there. I mean, I didn't know if that was a good price or not, So I paid it.
Yeah.
The market would have told me that I overpaid for that property by about $60,000 in 2014 or whatever. Fast forward, I knew that I was under rented, right? My game plan was to raise rent. So I created an 18-month plan to raise rents $200 a unit, 600. We went from 600 to over 800 per unit on all 8 units. Well, let me tell you, Gary, that after that, the numbers looked way better, right? And a lot of people would say that's too aggressive. Tenants are going to leave. Nobody left. It was painful. I had to walk through that moment, but all of a sudden now I had a property that was worth more, and now it was performing. And since then, and then I'll kind of shut up a little bit because this has kind of been part of our journey.
That's okay.
We started furnishing those units and actually allowing traveling nurses and contract labor to have contract furnished space. And now those units that were getting $850 a month are now getting $1,600 to $1,700 a month in those fourplexes. So it's not about what you buy; it's what your vision is for what you buy.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that subject. People, I get asked this a lot. What I or say, hey, Gary, I can't buy these properties now because they won't cash flow. The prices are too high, the interest rates are high, and the rents went up, but not enough. Like, what? You're looking at it through one lens. You can't look at this linearly. You have to look at it like with an exponential view. And so what's happening, just a brief background right now, around the country on the short-term rentals, not everywhere, but in some of the local areas, it's a local thing. There's been pushback for local neighborhoods and communities on short-term rentals like Airbnb. In the same time, sort of globally, it's this wave coming that's kind of in Canada, but also in the California and some of the Northeast places like Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey. There's been a slow, steady move legislatively towards the tenants and away from the owners. And we're talking about rights, fewer, lesser ownership rights and greater tenant rights, right? So the middle ground is what we used to call corporate housing. Now we call it midterm housing. That's the group of people you just talked about. Traveling nurses, business people, or, sports and entertainment, oil and gas, high tech. And they're there for greater than a month, but less than a year. We call that midterm I mean, and what's interesting, and I'm probably going to tip off too many politicians when I say this, but it's like a no man's land for legislation. Legislation is either focusing on the long-term rentals, traditional rentals, or the Airbnb style short terms. I still like Airbnb because there's plenty of places that still do it. But the midterm rentals, what I'm getting at is they're kind of leaving it alone,
Yeah.
and neighbors don't care because these are people coming in to work for a week. They go home on the weekends. They're not there. They're not bringing their kids and dogs. They're not throwing
Yep.
wild parties. It's just a great middle ground. And you can, the fact that you doubled your rent is exactly in line, Kyle, with what we've been seeing, man. So it's right around. I just wanted for everybody listening, listen to what Kyle's telling you because he's exactly spot on with the trend that we've been seeing. So go ahead and continue, Kyle, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, Gary, I love that you took it this route because if we could do midterm rentals, we would do it 10 times out of 10. Why do we like it?
Yeah.
Well, first off, we've enjoyed furnishing our units because the units get taken care of really well. They're in better condition. They're getting cleaned regularly, more regularly than the classic
Hmm.
long-term tenant. And that, yeah, they're just in a higher quality condition, and now they're attracting a higher quality guest. And then it goes away from the nightly, and we get these really high income, busy professional, almost high income, busy professional type
Hmm.
people that are guesting with us. And I don't know if any of you out there run we have a property management company as part of our brokerage and our property portfolio. You guys, I don't know if you have the property management stories or nightmares. I think they get overblown sometimes because it's all manageable. But you guys, this is the opposite. These are people that are thankful, grateful. They give amazing feedback. They pay on time. And sometimes they pay in full ahead. We love serving these people, and it's just been this cool niche. We would rent to them, and not to mention, by the way, the rent's 1.5 times or if not double. A lot of times that's being subsidized by the
Yeah.
person that they're the employer. And so it's just this amazing win-win, and it really motivates us to make a great amenity for our guests. We're doing more and more aesthetically pleasing things to our properties, which, by the way, what does that end up being? It ends up being value and sellable value down
Yeah.
the road. And so like, it's a really cool thought to think of those two fourplexes under rented as long terms.
Yeah.
And essentially we're in the process. We have about 5 of the 8 units done. We'll essentially turn those into 2 little hotels that we're not renting by the night anymore. We're
Yeah.
going to rent to all midterms. That's our vision. And the property,
Hmm.
the value of that property, our rent roll will likely be over $10,000 a month. Which, quick 1%
Yeah.
rule, I'd run comparables. We would have doubled the value of that property, and remember, this is coming from the story
Right.
of the young kid that didn't know what he was doing, that overbought
Yeah.
this thing by 15%. And people
Yeah.
around me were saying, "Man, Kyle, this could sink you. This is a horrible idea. I can't believe what you're doing. That's so risky." You guys, it's not risky if you have a
Hmm.
plan. I'm big on having a vision, you guys. If you have a vision for something and you can really, the investors that are winning are the ones that are putting on that hat and turning the cranks and understanding how to tweak and optimize and pivot. The ones that are losing, and those are more
Yeah.
active characteristics, by the way. But some of this is just head. You're mentally active. It doesn't mean you have to be holding the hammer,
Right.
right? And so that's just a fun case study of what I think is amazing opportunity, even for small unit count buildings, right? Duplexes, threeplexes,
Yeah.
fourplexes.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, you mentioned, brokerage and property management too. So I'm gathering you're a fan of multiple streams of income. Like me. I did the same thing. I started off investing, then I started a brokerage company, then I started a property management company, then a title company, an appraisal company. And when you have this, because when you have the clients, you don't have to go out and spend more money on marketing and advertising. You've already got the clients. You're serving them. They already need what you have. So talk a little bit about that. When I was reading up about you, you had an interesting. It was like a quote. Find your 5 streams of income. So I want people to listen. To everybody listening, if you're driving, don't take notes, but you can listen to later again and take notes. Listen to what Kyle's going to talk about here because multiple streams of income, I'm telling you, it's one of the keys to success. And Kyle, you mentioned 5. Kind of if you can elaborate on that and what does that mean when you talk about that?
Yeah, Gary, absolutely. And it must have been about 2017 or 2018. And I was reading a book. I believe it was The Millionaire Next Door. And in that book, he's interviewing millionaires and he asks, what's your definition of risk, to one of the successful millionaires that he was interviewing. And you think of like risk. Okay. So they're like, what's involved, how much I'm analyzing something. What am I putting in place to make sure I don't lose? No, he said the riskiest thing you can do in life is have a single source of income. And he said the more risky than that, he said, is if you don't own the income source, AKA a W-2 employee.
Yeah.
Right. And he said that in his view, the way his brain worked, that was the most risky thing you can do. And if you look out your window right now and you see a business, that's telling us that most of the population is doing the most risky thing that ever could be done, which is they're building a table with one leg, and we all know how a table with one leg would stand up. And so really quickly, my wife and I were like, hey, you got a good thing going. I was working at a brokerage at the time, right? But you're doing well. You're doing some sales. You're learning this business. You're in real estate. We have some property, but what's our vision with this? And so that was it. That was when we decided to create that finish line. And I'm a big proponent of not moving the goalposts all the time. So much of what I think is people need is focus and a finish line. Just because as you get closer to that finish line, you start to run faster. And I think what people do is they keep tossing that ball down the field and they can never catch it. And so we said, hey, everything we're doing in business, we designed our life around $25,000 a month. And as we get to that place in income, we want to turn that into passive income. So, first we had to eclipse that $25,000 a month and we had to raise the bridge of income in our lives. And then when we got there, we need to start to optimize. Again, put that hat on and tweak those things into passive income streams. What it made us do, Gary, was it helped me understand that, hey, if I have an income stream that can't eventually turn passive somehow, if I don't have a plan for that to be passive, that's not a 10-year business for me. That's not something I need to continue to be involved with because it doesn't align with our vision. But how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. And so we were like, hey, how does 25,000 happen? Yep. And we said, hey, that's probably 5 streams of 5,000 a month. And how does 5 streams of 5,000 a month start? It starts with 3 streams at 1,000 a month. And then you continue to add to that utility knife. And so that's when we started to see these things show up for us. Gary, one of the things you and I have in common was, we're brokers, we're real estate agents. One of the biggest convicting things for me was my activities as a real estate agent. And now I moved into my own brokerage. I have my own team called Midwest Invest Realty Group. And I was like, this is the most active thing that I do. And I don't see a path for this to turn passive. Well, that's when we got introduced to Real Broker in 2021. And we linked up with Real Broker, which is, publicly traded cloud-based broker. And now that has passive income components to it, with ownership in the company and revenue stream. And it's almost funny how that showed up for us. And we were kind of like, gosh, should we continue to do this real estate thing? And that showed up for us. And that answered the question of how we can get passive with that as well. So that was it's cool when you set a vision like that, Gary, how stuff starts to show up for you.
Yep. Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live, be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to realestateWithGaryWilson.com, click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care.
It does.
The thing is, when you're in the game, when you're immersed in the thing that you're passionate about, some people call it luck, some people call it magic. It's just the power of the universe. I mean, we've probably heard of the the book. I forget what it's called.
The Secret.
There's the secret, and there's also like energy. There really is. If you actually study, you know, you know, science. If you study science and chemistry, every atom, has neurons, protons, electrons. And if you look at it under a microscope, hyper microscope, it's not sitting still. You could take an atom from a piece of rock. It's not sitting still. Those atoms are constantly spinning, you know. So its energy is what it is. Energy mass is just a matter of consolidated energy. So in any case, when you think about what you've been able to accomplish, you generally you have an idea, then you start to ponder it and think about it, and then you start to visualize it and dream about it. Well, it's like the laws of the universe all of a sudden start turning. Okay, this is what's supposed to happen then, and things start coming your way. Could be God sends the right person at the right time, the right place to say the right thing at the right moment, and it's exactly what you need to hear for something you've been struggling with for 3 months. Those are the things that happen. And you can call it luck, whatever you want. I'm just telling you, it happens and it works. So you do have to be intentional about it. So everything you're doing, I love the fact that you started small. We have a philosophy which is, learn small, then grow big. So you didn't start
Mm.
off with 5 streams of 5,000 per stream. You started off with probably your investing, probably brokerage,
Yep.
and property management. Maybe that was
Mm.
your first three, and they're making a little bit. So you're growing them. You're growing those business streams. You're scaling what you've got, but you don't add the new thing. You don't add the fourth thing until you've got the first three things going. Then you don't add the fifth thing. I mean, yes, you can try to do all at the same time, but I mean, it can make you get old pretty fast too. So I love your philosophy. I love your approach on that. Um, and I have a kind of a follow-up question. Uh, Something we talked about a moment ago was the extra strategies, long-term rentals versus short-term rentals versus mid-term rentals. And I mentioned I am still a fan of short-term rentals, specifically like Airbnb, VRBO, all that kind of stuff. Do you still do that in Fargo? Is it still has there been pushback enough to turn you away from it, or is it still, because I've seen Airbnb everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's downtown Pittsburgh. There's no beach there.
Yeah.
There's no mountains there.
Yep.
Great sports teams, but it's a draw. People will stay there. It's amazing. So is that? Fill us in a little bit about that. I know you have a quote about that. I think it said in 90 days get it up and running. But if you don't mind, I want people to realize that that's still a viable option.
Yeah. And that's where we had to kind of get our heads away from Airbnb and really get into the
Mm.
sector of short-term rental, because we're like, wait, Airbnb, it's like aesthetic, it's a beach, it's a mountain, it's a forest. And it's like, wait, hotels are just right in the middle of everywhere. Like everybody has reasons they need temporary space. And so it started the interest level started, and I bought the first property that I bought. It was we haven't been doing this long, but we're now one of the premier managers for short-term rentals for our own units and others in this region. I think my partner in that, Jory, he's actually learning more and more about this. He's traveling right now. But I think in the tri-state area is the one that's most knowledgeable about mid-market short-term rentals. And so what we were finding is, hey, well, I want to get back to my story. We bought one that was right next to the college
Mhm.
campus. This was a classic college house. This should have been a long-term rental to students. In fact, it was like people were like, "Why wouldn't you just do that? It's a good investment for that." It's like, well, we want to test something. We want to test a theory. So we put some furniture in it. We made it. We made it all. Furnished it up. Brought the decor in that really makes it pop. We actually did a little bit of curb appeal upgrade just because that front photo on short-term rentals is very much a draw. That's that hero photo. And the results
Mhm.
were unbelievable. I mean, the results were just mind-blowing. It was just it's a mixed bag of many reasons. We had students renting it to shoot their video project. We had people coming in for a wrestling tournament. Elton John came and played in town, and it got booked out for like $600 a night because there was nowhere else to stay. And it was just this little 1950 style Rambler. And we realized, okay, well, we don't have to have it completely figured out for our avatar that's staying here, but there's always a need for a kitchen. There's a need for a backyard if you want pets. There's a need for groups staying together in a space. We have a lot. We have we have two interstates going through Fargo, and there's just a lot of travel, medical reasons people would come in. Graduation weekend always books out in the first semester, second semester. Sporting events, you get the picture. So we figured out like, hey, we're just playing the short-term rental game. We're not playing the Airbnb game. We're not doing destinations. We're not doing vacations. We're doing, and so we actually do that where we lowered our nightly minimum to just one, you can book and stay at one of our places right now for tonight. It's almost like a hotel. And so we've just been having a lot of fun and a lot of success providing that housing, and it's kind of caught on here. The cool part is Fargo is generally a little slower to have regulation enter in for that type of thing, Gary. So as that maybe gets asked questions or causes issues, but what we've found out is it's not the tenants that are the issues. It's generally the owners, it's the managers not regulating who's staying at their units. We really screen who's going to stay with us. We really screen our guests. And it's really eliminated a lot of fires. I think when there's negligence with, hey, anybody and everybody can stay here. And you know what? The other thing is the units that we own, they're not built for big groups. They're not built for bachelor parties and bachelorette parties and all these different, raucous occasions. We have people just coming to visit their kids, at college or check out a show and get some rest, and have a garage to park in. So it's really cool when you can just provide functional space rather than thinking I need a flat in Nashville and that's going to rent out for the most, or I need a pool in the backyard. In fact, Gary, one of our things we've learned the most, we'll never manage pools again. We actually don't even like managing hot tubs. Some Airbnb people would be like, hey, get these extra amenities for higher nightlies. It's like, no, we want highly functional, streamlined, ease of use spaces, not this big, we're offering every amenity slope side, hot tubs and all the above, so.
Yeah. I agree. I learned a long time ago when I was, started investing in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where, half the houses had pools. And after the first one, I thought, no, never again. I mean, not just the liability part of it and the insurance costs, but the maintenance, the upkeep, and short-term renters they're not going to care for it, and then there's all kinds of other problems. I mean, the pool itself gets old. It's just not worth it. So it's not, it's just, when it comes to the upside potential versus downside risk, this is what I always tell my students. Whenever you come with a decision, use what I call a decision matrix to make your decision. It brings logic and rationale to a loaded decision. There's multiple factors, and it's hard to keep everything in your head at once. Because with a decision matrix, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're weighing upside potential against downside risk. And when the upside potential doesn't justify the downside risk, don't do it. And then pools are one of those examples. Now I know in Florida it's going to be different because every house has a pool, and maybe Southern California too, but really in the northern states, no, it's not worth it. So, hey, I wanted to ask you about the 25K group. It's sort of your brand. You've got the 25K group. You're teaching. Tell us about that. How many you got teaching, coaching, and I guess the mastermind? If you could expand on that a little bit, I want people to see what you got going on, because I think people should be looking at Fargo for investing purposes. And if they've got someone like you there already, feet on the ground, doesn't get any better than that,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why we wanted to create a little bit of a one-stop shop for people that really are interested in getting involved, especially in our local market. But more than that, even anywhere, there's really cool steps you can take to just get in the game. I'm a big fan, Gary, I think the pendulum these days swings. It should swing, but it gets stuck on one side, and that's analysis and action. And I think a lot of people get stuck watching these Facebook videos and YouTube, and listen to podcasts like we're on right now. And you shouldn't just listen to these. You need to swing the pendulum back and act on what you've heard, and even screw up and make mistakes, right? But then you come back and analyze and understand what happened. And so I think a lot of people that come to me that, it's like, have you done anything? It's like, no, but you've gotten all this knowledge, right? What's the analogy? You could read every book about putting an IV in someone's arm if you're a nurse, but until you do it, you're never gonna learn how this goes. You'd be better off just sticking people 100 times, right? And so
Yeah.
The passive 25K group was built around our vision, our brand. We wanted to live our brand. While we're doing it, one thing, we're still on the journey to hitting our passive $25,000 a month. That's something that we're in the works of. There'll be a day when I'm teaching that concept matter from a point of victory and standing on the mountain and say, hey, this is what I did to get there. But it's really fun because we're in it with people. And we're really big on setting that vision. There's a really great book that we love called Vivid Vision that really helps you set a 3-year target. And once you set that vision, we start to put the tactical pieces in place. Like, what are the streams? What are the streams of income? One of the guys that we're working with actually chose vending machines. He's actually investing in vending machines, got into the local high school. He's doing about $1,500 a month from his vending machines. And there's a scale opportunity there. Some people are in e-commerce, definitely real estate focused things. I think that should be part of everyone's portfolio for a number of reasons, right? We both do. But the big thing is just, hey, we're going to get started and we're going to start small. And it's funny, I really get excited about the revenue streams that did $100 a month for the first time. Because if it did 100, it can do 1,000. And if it can do 1,000, it can do 10,000. It's just scale. It's just moving it down the path of scale. And so it's really exciting when we start to see that the beginning flame of another stream of income. And it really gets people thinking down that road. So we've kind of created a community around this. And then I actually do some coaching. We call that cash flow coaching, just to keep the steps in front of people. What's the next domino? One of the students that I'm working with right now, where he's really interested in buying an online business. And he's been talking to brokers and different sites that can really be managed passively through a team. Just really interesting to learn about the different ways people are creating these different revenue streams, building that table with 4 or 5 legs. So eventually they can solve the money problem. Expenses, passive income equals expenses, and you have options now. You have that financial freedom. So,
yeah. Wow. Well, how can I know we're pretty much out of time here, but if people if someone just Googles 25K group of the finder, is there anything specific you want to give them as far as contact information goes? Because I'm pretty sure you did an excellent job, by the way, with the podcast. I really appreciate you taking time to do this. But where you are is unique. Most people are in, Atlanta and Dallas and Houston, and not knocking those places. They're great places, but I like going to places where it's easier, it's stable, and quite frankly, there's less competition. But if you're, I guess, well, I guess now it's called the X, but at Kyle.p25kg, that would be the X. But are there other channels you prefer people to use to go to, like a website, Facebook channel, Instagram, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So you should be able to find me on social media pretty easily. I'm pretty active. And if you do find me on social media, you'll see my calendar link. My link tree is right there, which kind of has some of the shows we do, some of the content we put together. We do what's called the Midwest Investor Report. That's actually market data about our market here, which is really interesting. And then that's tied to my calendar. So I oftentimes when I do a show like this and someone's curious, I encourage them, hey, grab some time. Let's have a chat. I love hearing about people's passive income visions because I like to share mine and I like to hear about others. And so would love for people to click on there and grab some time with me. The other thing I want to mention, Gary, is obviously I'm a real estate agent at heart here. I run a small team of real estate agents. Our team, this is the most active thing I do is team leader of this team. And one thing I'm really passionate about lately and have spent a lot of energy on is helping real estate agents that are producing. real estate agents that get to that $10 million a year mark pretty consistently, which is a really good, strong business. But they start moving towards, hey, I like the income, but I need to start taking back some time. I need to start leveraging. And so I've partnered with a group called Time Rich, and it's been really fun energy for me to work with Time Rich on some implementable tools that you can put into your life to start to get your time back. Because I think real estate agents get snagged in the day-to-day. One of the perfect examples is my email inbox for almost 6 months now has been managed by a virtual assistant. My emails went from 3 to 4 hours, probably 1 to 2 hours a day, 6 to 10 hours a week of email consumption and interaction with my inbox, down to probably about 30 to 45 minutes a week. And you know how much time that's freed up for me to do things that matter, right? And so this company, we're kind of creating a part for real estate agents, Time Rich for real estate agents. And I'd love to talk to more real estate agents about that, because I'm passionate about agents getting more freedom from the things that get them snagged up so they can do the things that matter and push the ball forward. So.
Yeah. So I'm guessing there's more to that. I mean, is that something, like I have 3 virtual assistants myself for the team. And, I know people that own companies like Outdesk and Sphere Rocket. One of them actually is an agent, and they turned that everything they learned about working with virtual assistants, they just turned it and configured it into a business, and they're really doing quite well. But everybody listening, this is really important. You know, you can hire U.S. based employees and pay them whatever you got to pay them. $20 an hour, $30 an hour. A salary generally it's going to cost you more than that because you got to pay employer taxes and things like that. Um, you know, I'm not saying don't hire them at all. What I'm saying is be strategic. Hire people stateside that you need to have stateside. Hire people abroad that can be abroad. I mean, I'm just going to put a plug in for the Philippines. Beautiful, wonderful people, highly educated, beautiful place, by the way. And my guys make an average of $5 an hour US. However, that translates into about 50,000 pesos per month, Filipino pesos. They're living really well, let me tell you. And they love our culture. They want more of what we have, and you can help them have it. Plus they like us. We're not fighting them right now. So
Yep.
they're good people. But have you found the same kind of thing? To me, it's been one of the best surprises I've ever come across.
Oh man, I can't tell you, Gary. I had to really get out of my own way to finally just walk into the leverage that's provided. And it also made me get organized on some systems. I had to think about what I wanted. Now I have someone from the Philippines that they interact with me on Slack. We chat back and forth. By the way, they work overnight. He works during the day hours here, but he's working overnight. It's very normal for their culture. One of the most grateful people that I've come across. He checks my inbox 3 times a day, clears everything out, puts it in folders. I can go in there and literally see the highlights within less than 5 minutes and get into action responses that are needed, whatever needs to, it's just not bogging me down at all. It's not distracting me. I'm really getting to the meat. Simple systems on where he's putting things in the folder, unsubscribing from things, replying to things when necessary. You guys, this stuff is not, it's simple, not easy, right? And so what I'm working to do is shed light on this for more real estate agents, because it's so fun to think about agents being able to do the things they're best at more, and how that can help them achieve their goals for their family, for their community, for their clients. Get out of here. And the inbox is just one example. Calendar management. There's a lot of other things that we can do. And so the team I'm working with called Time Rich, that's something that if any agents are curious, definitely reach out to me. I'd love to make an introduction. And they have a whole system on how to start to gain back your time, in all aspects for entrepreneurs, but especially for real estate agents. So, it's a really fun program that I have a lot of energy for. So.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, you and we are a lot alike. I mean, almost in every regard. So that's good, because what's interesting is, I interview people every week, and I get interviewed too. But sometimes there's clearly things in common. But this is one of the first times I think it's been such a close match. But I want everybody to, if you're listening, please leave a review for this. This is one of the really, really good ones because you got a lot of golden nuggets, a lot of content that cover multiple streams of income. So it's not just about brokerage earning commissions. It's not just about investing. It's about both. Remember, it's not an or equation. Life is an and equation. How can I do this and that? Well, this Kyle's given you the secret sauce for how to do that. So leave a great review. We really appreciate it. It's the currency that makes our podcast world go round. Kyle, thank you for spending such valuable time with us. I'm so glad we got into that final subject because that's one of those golden practical, tactical how-to things to maximize income and minimize expenses, so
Yes.
so guys, check out Kyle Reedstrom, Kyle's first name, last name Reedstrom, Reedstrom, Kyle Reedstrom. Go online, look for Kyle on social media, connect with him, have that conversation, and see where that leads you, man. So all right, you guys, take care of yourselves. God bless you and your families, and we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.